Hey guys, it's Trafotin. Remember the last time I made a video about Android? Okay, it was a long time ago. But right here in my hands, I actually have something very special. This is the Pixel 7 Pro, and it's a phone that I actually pawned off of a relative. If it were up to me, I'd probably have gone for a later version of the Pixel phone, especially with the promised 7 years of updates, whether or not Google will actually uphold them. But one of the reasons I've been so excited about this phone is that this is the first phone that I've ever had to install a custom operating system on it. Yes, believe it or not, of all the phones that I've ever owned, I have never owned a phone with a custom operating system. I chose to go down this route because I am so excited to have a phone with a custom operating system in it, and a custom operating system fully free of the Google and Apple experience and ecosystem. This Pixel 7 Pro has now become my daily driver, and I have never been more excited about my phone since my flip phone. Buckle up, guys. It's time to learn about how to flash Android ROMs. So what I did with my Android device was the first thing I did, which I believe that everyone should do with their Android devices, make sure your device is capable of running a custom operating system. Now, what does that actually mean? When you install something on your computer, most people have their computer that comes with Windows or Chrome OS or Mac OS. But you know, I know my audience. I know you guys well. You want to install a custom operating system on your computer. You want to install something like the Linuxes and the BSDs of the world. You don't want to have to be locked into the Google, Microsoft, or Apple ecosystems. Android ROMs are about the same thing. You're installing a custom operating system on top of the hardware that you usually use, but instead of using normal version of Android, you're using a completely different version of Android. Typically, a lot of Android manufacturers ship with them a custom Android operating system. And believe it or not, even Google also ships their users a custom Android operating system. Now, what I did with my device was I chose to install GrapheneOS as my custom Android ROM. But why would someone choose to do this? And it all really comes down to control and functionality. Since many manufacturers make it really difficult, they are essentially taking away your freedom to install custom operating systems on your device. What's really hilarious to me is that people believe that Secure Boot is a way of taking away your freedom by Microsoft, but in reality, what's actually happened is you see things like in the Android world where these freedoms have been effectively ripped away or made incredibly difficult for people. If you use the carrier versions of devices, for example, you cannot install custom operating systems on them. And they're effectively taking away the freedom of what you do on your device and the ownership of your device. And this is really important to be using something like Android because compared to something like Apple, you can't install a custom operating system on it because on Android with select phones, you do have that choice. That all being said, there are lots of risks, and I don't want to go without mentioning them. In the past, installing custom Android operating systems could brick your device, but that is way in the past and times have changed. As long as you run a big name, reputable Android ROM, the chances of you bricking your phone are pretty small, especially when you have operating systems like GrapheneOS and CalyxOS who actually provide scripts for you to run and automatically choose the correct image for you and install everything and do all the hard work. As long as you play it safe and stick to the big name ROMs, it's really, really hard to mess up. And while I'm all about encouraging software freedom and running what you want on your device, I do want to warn you against rooting your device or the choice of Android ROM that you pick. Rooting usually gives the end user the same ability to run dangerous commands on your system. But Trafotin, I use Lineage OS and I haven't gotten in trouble yet for rooting my phone. The problem is rooting your phone has dangerous consequences, especially if you're downloading files outside of the Google Play Store. And sure, you could get by with your whiz-bang, battery-enhancing apps and your custom host files, but newer innovations prove that an unrooted device is just as great, and substitutions can be done with the same things. You can install a custom Android ROM, and constantly using your phone with administrative privileges is just as much of a bad practice as you running your computer as a root user at all times and not using sudo. Just stop it. If it's bad for your computers, it's bad for your phone too. And this is why I am such a big proponent of GrapheneOS. GrapheneOS is a custom Android ROM designed not to compromise on user security while still respecting your rights, especially your rights to privacy. It's the most robust custom Android ROM, but that polish comes at a cost, and I really want to emphasize this. If you don't have a Google device, GrapheneOS will not work for you. GrapheneOS can only be installed on Google devices. And Google might have a hit or miss track record when it comes to building smartphones, but the reality is Google has always been reliable at keeping your software of your device up to date and has pledged the longest support of Android operating systems way far ahead of their competition. And no, they don't have to deal with Qualcomm's stupid arbitrary limitation of security updates. You just have to deal with Google's arbitrary limitation of security updates. Sure, Google's one of the big tech companies, but they recognize that they're responsible for the biggest phone operating system in the world, and the only reason they continue to fund Pixel, despite the very few benefits that it gives them, is because it makes the other phone manufacturers way more responsible because of how awful most of them are. And I know the irony of saying you will get a completely Google Apple free private experience using a Google phone is incredibly ironic, but Google phones are legitimately the easiest phones that you can install, not just GrapheneOS, but any custom Android ROM. If you don't want to install GrapheneOS, or when GrapheneOS finally hits its end of life, you can install something like CalyxOS or DivestOS on here. The entry-level devices like the Pixel 7a, the upcoming Pixel 8a, and the Pixel tablet have all traditionally been around $500 or less, and they're actually pretty affordable, and they're the best way to get in for cheap. So if you are sold on using a custom Android ROM, you're tired of being oppressed by your Android manufacturer, or you're tired of being oppressed by Apple, ripping away your rights at every turn, you can have a nice, fresh, Google and Apple free phone when you use a Google phone. I'm doing this with the Pixel 7 Pro, but all of Google's current product line should be supported. That includes all of the Pixel 6, 7, and 8 series, and the Pixel Fold and the Pixel tablet. So regardless of which one you choose, you should be able to install GrapheneOS on it. I'm not going to go into detail, but the first step is, like I've said earlier, is we need to have a Google device. Google device needs to be carrier unlocked. You can get this at like Best Buy. Just don't get it from like, you know, like the Verizon store or like your T-Mobile store. Don't do that. You also need a computer with a supported operating system to reduce as much error as possible. And this can be a computer or even another Android phone. So if you are coming from another Android device, you can just use a phone with stock Android. You just need to connect the two phones with a USB-C cable, and it'll be fine. Then you also need to use a Chromium-based browser from the list. So probably, you know, something like Microsoft Edge if you're on Windows, Brave, you know, like Chromium, Google Chrome, that kind of thing. And then finally, you need to connect your Google device with your USB-C cable, preferably the one from the box, and trust the device when you plug it in. So if you run Windows, Mac, Linux, just trust the device. And if you do the computer method, you do need to make sure that you have the Android SDK tools installed. So what I did was I installed Ubuntu onto a spare computer, and I had Brave with the ad blocker disabled, and the instructions are pretty reliable on Linux and Windows, but they're pretty vague overall. If I had to really criticize the installation process, I really think there could have been maybe an extra pull-down menu or something to give people some more instructions. But that's really just the hard part. Now we're going to do something more fun. We're going to do OEM unlocking, and this is one of the most coveted features of unlocked Android phones that allow you to install custom ROMs. But how are we going to configure this? If you go to the Settings app and go to About, go to the build number, then smash that build number button until you become a developer. And after you've become a developer, go to Settings, System, Developer Options, and OEM Unlocking Enabled. And you might need to connect to Wi-Fi once and make sure the phone is fully updated before you continue. That way we can reduce as much error as possible. And then after you've enabled OEM unlocking, you're going to have to turn the phone off and turn it back on again. And then once you turn your phone back on, we're gonna have to start doing the dirty deed. Go to the Chrome browser on your nice host operating system and click the button to identify your Google device. Then click the button to download the corresponding release. When your device turns back on, hold the volume button while the phone turns on, and then you will get the spooky tiny text of the fast boot menu. This means that we are in business and ready to get started on the hardest step of all, clicking 3 buttons. Go to your Chrome browser and click the button to identify your Google device and unlock your bootloader. Click the button to download the corresponding release to your device. Click the button to delete all data from your device. Make sure if this is a Google phone or whatever phone you've used recently, make sure you've cleared everything out of it and that you're not going to lose anything important. And while this is happening, do not, and I repeat, do not touch your phone. Your phone will look like it's glitching out and working its little magic and reboot multiple times, but just let it do its thing. It took me about 20 minutes to get the whole thing done. Your phone will reboot multiple times and you will know you have succeeded once the Google logo shows up, only to be jump cutted by the GrapheneOS logo, just like you see in hacking movies. You'll see a little hash appear as your phone boots up, and you can press the power button to pause as your phone turns up to compare this hash. If you go back to GrapheneOS's website and compare the hash to the list that they have there, this ensures that you are running an official GrapheneOS image. And this sounds like a lot of work, but this is the beauty of running a custom Android operating system. Running a custom Android operating system means you have the ability to do whatever you want to the device, and as a badness reduction measure, once your hardware manufacturer, like say Google, kills off support, you can always run something like another custom operating system like divestOS to preserve your device and keep getting new Android updates despite the fact that it's killed off by the manufacturer. And I could go into a lot more detail about GrapheneOS, but I just want to leave it at that because there's a lot of information here, and I just want to leave this open in case an angry developer comes after me for making an installation guide, even though it's the exact installation guide on the website as of now. Speaking of more content, why don't you go like this video? Like this video if you too would like to be free of the Google and Apple ecosystem. What's that? I have a PeerTube and my website. Just go there. Then you don't have to deal with Google at all. Alright guys, thank you for watching. I will see you guys next time. Have a great rest of your week.